Hello and welcome. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine a storm-tossed sea. Waves like mountains crashing against the hull of your ship, timbers groaning under the assault of nature's fury. You are thrown against stone walls, water flooding in around you, and then darkness takes you. When you wake, you find yourself in a place you did not choose, surrounded by dangers you did not anticipate, and burdened with a mission that will reshape the fate of nations. This is where your story begins, in the depths of a place called Privateer's Hold. And what awaits you in the lands beyond will test everything you thought you knew about loyalty, power, and the price of peace. You are an agent of the Emperor, though few know this truth. Your arrival in the Iliac Bay was meant to be discreet, a quiet entrance into a region simmering with tension and old grudges. But fate, it seems, had other plans. The ship that carried you from the imperial city met with disaster. Whether by natural storm or darker forces, you cannot say. You find yourself waking in the dank corridors of Privateer's Hold, a dungeon that has claimed many lives before yours. The stone walls around you are slick with moisture, and you can hear the skittering of rats in the darkness, the distant sounds of creatures that should not exist. This is your introduction to the Iliac Bay, a baptism by fear and struggle. As you fight your way through the depths of Privateer's Hold, battling imps, rats, and worse things still, your memories begin to return in fragments. Like a dream slowly taking shape, you recall standing before Emperor Iliac Septim VII himself, a ruler whose reign stretches across decades, whose calm voice and sharp eyes reveal both kindness and a deep, unending concern for the stability of Tamriel. He spoke to you in his private chambers, away from the eyes and ears of the court, away from the formalities that usually surround the dragonborn emperor. In that quiet audience, he laid the weight of a distant kingdom upon your shoulders. He told you of King Lysandus of Daggerfall, a monarch who had once been a stalwart ally of the Empire, a man praised for both his courage in battle and his loyalty to the imperial throne. Lysandus ruled the kingdom of Daggerfall on the southern coast of High Rock, one of the most influential realms in the Iliac Bay. By all accounts, he had been beloved by his people, respected by friend and rival alike. But Lysandus is dead now, fallen during the War of Bettany, a bitter conflict between Daggerfall and the Kingdom of Sentinel over a small but strategically vital island called Bettany. Bettany is a modest island in the Iliac Bay, lying between the territories of Daggerfall and Sentinel. Both kingdoms claimed it. Both kingdoms argued that ancient rights and agreements justified their control. Neither was willing to give way. What began as a dispute over trade and fealty slowly spiraled into open war. Daggerfall and Sentinel gathered their armies, and over time, the War of Bettany became a symbol of the simmering tensions that always lurked beneath the surface of the Iliac Bay's politics. It all culminated in the Battle of Kringen Field, where the forces of Daggerfall and Sentinel faced one another in a final, desperate clash. It was on that field that King Lysandus fell, and with his death, the war came to an end, with Daggerfall emerging as the nominal victor. At least, that is how the official histories describe it. But the emperor's concern is not only with how Lysandus died, but with what happened afterward. Death did not bring peace to the king of Daggerfall. His spirit has returned, bound to the city he once ruled. Night after night, the ghost of Lysandus is said to walk the streets of Daggerfall, armored and wreathed in spectral anguish, crying out for vengeance. His haunting has become a terror to the citizens, who bar their doors and whisper prayers when darkness falls. Priests, mages, and local authorities have all failed to calm his unrest. The emperor, seeing a threat not only to the people, but to the stability of the region, now turns to you. Your first mission is simple in phrasing and impossibly complex in reality. You are to travel to Daggerfall and discover why King Lysandus cannot rest. You are to find the cause of his torment, and if you can, lay his spirit to peace. That is the duty spoken aloud, the purpose that could be declared in any hall. But as you stood before Emperor Iliac Septim, he confided a second task, far quieter and far more dangerous. There is a letter, he said, a letter that he himself sent to Queen Lysandus of Daggerfall some time ago. That letter never reached her. It has disappeared somewhere between the imperial city and the court of Daggerfall. The emperor did not reveal its exact contents to you, but his expression and his careful words made one thing clear. If that letter were to be found by the wrong person, it could cause serious harm, whether to the empire's reputation, its diplomacy, or its delicate balance with the Bay kingdoms. Your second mission, then, is to locate that lost letter and ensure that it is recovered and destroyed. This quiet task, hidden beneath the more public concern over Lysandus's ghost, is the emperor's true fear. The Iliac Bay itself is the stage upon which all of this unfolds. It lies between two great provinces of Tamriel, High Rock to the north and east, and Hammerfell to the south and west. High Rock is the land of the Bretons, a people of mixed human and elven ancestry, known for their skill in magic and their deeply rooted feudal traditions. Hammerfell is the home of the Redguards, master swordsmen and sailors, heirs to a culture forged in faraway Yokuda before that land vanished beneath the waves. Around the shores and islands of the bay, dozens of city-states, duchies, baronies, and kingdoms rise and fall, each ruled by its own nobility, each jealously guarding its independence. Daggerfall is among the most ancient and powerful of these realms. Its capital city, also called Daggerfall, sits along the southern coast of High Rock, a fortified city that has endured sieges, plagues, and shifting alliances. Its castle towers over the harbor, its banners visible to any ship that enters the bay. The people of Daggerfall are proud and mindful of their history. They remember debts and slights alike, and they are used to living under monarchs who command both respect and fear. The death of such a king, followed by his restless haunting, would naturally shake the kingdom to its core. The War of Bettany sits at the heart of this turmoil. Bettany itself might seem insignificant at first glance, just an island and coastal territory. But its location along trade routes makes it valuable. As tensions grew, the conflict drew in vassals, knightly orders, and mercenary companies on both sides. By the time of the Battle of Cringin Field, both Daggerfall and Sentinel had committed heavily to the struggle. The field itself lay between the Ravenian forest and the Yoth Burland, a meadow that would be remembered less for its beauty and more for the blood shed there. It is on that field, under a sky obscured by fog and chaos, that Lysandus met his end. Officially, the king died honorably amid the confusion and violence of the battle, and his body was returned to Daggerfall for a royal burial. But the fact that his spirit now walks the night suggests that what happened on Cringin Field may not be as simple as the official record implies. This could imply treachery woven into the chaos, or some vow unfulfilled at the moment of his death. Based on what you later learn in Daggerfall, the details of that day carry more secrets than the court initially admits. When at last you escape Privateer's hold, exhausted but alive, you emerge onto a rugged cliff overlooking the wide expanse of the Iliac Bay. The air is fresh and cold, carrying the scent of salt and distant forests. The world feels vast in a way that is almost overwhelming. Somewhere out there lies the city of Daggerfall. Somewhere in that city, a ghost king cries out beneath the moon. And somewhere in the region, a letter written by the emperor himself lies hidden, carrying words that must never be seen by unintended eyes. Your path takes you along winding roads and through scattered villages. You glimpse the variety of life in the bay. Fishermen drag their nets from the sea. Farmers tend fields that cling to rolling hills. Merchants guide caravans between towns, wary of bandits and beasts. Every inn you visit holds rumors about the ghost of Lysandus. Some describe him as a pale figure in full armor, his face twisted in sorrow or rage. Others insist that he is accompanied by other spirits, a spectral retinue echoing his royal status even in death. The details differ, but one fact remains constant. The haunting is real. The people are afraid. When you reach Daggerfall City, the first thing you notice is its scale. The walls rise high, and within them, streets wind between houses of stone and timber. Shops, guild halls, temples, and taverns crowd together, all under the looming presence of Castle Daggerfall. Guards patrol the streets in their livery, maintaining a semblance of order. But there is a tension in the air that you can feel even in daylight. As evening approaches, shutters close and doors are bolted from within. The city prepares for the night, and the possibility of seeing its dead king stride through its streets. You do not march directly into the royal castle demanding answers. Instead, you begin at the edges, gathering information the way an experienced agent must. The inns and taverns of Daggerfall hold as many secrets as the castle halls. You listen as travelers, soldiers, and local citizens whisper about the royal family and recent events. They speak of Queen Lysandus, once the consort of Lysandus, now a queen mother whose influence has faded since her son Gothrid took the throne. They mention King Gothrid himself, newly crowned and already under intense scrutiny. His youth and relative inexperience contrasted with the memory of his father's strength. You also hear the name of Queen Obkai, the Redguard bride of Gothrid, daughter of Sentinel's ruling line. Her marriage to Gothrid was part of the peace that followed the War of Bettany, a political union meant to bind Daggerfall and Sentinel more closely together after so much bloodshed. For some, this symbolizes hope, a bridge between Bretons and Redguards. For others, it represents unease, a foreign queen in Daggerfall's court, a sign that old rivalries have not been fully put to rest, only covered over. As you move through the city, you begin to sense the layers of power that exist in Daggerfall. There is the royal family, of course, with Gothrid and Obkai at the center and Lysandus in their shadow. There are influential nobles whose names carry weight in court. There are guilds, such as the Fighters Guild and the Mages Guild, each with their own priorities and influence. There are knightly orders devoted to ideals and rulers, temples devoted to the divines, and less visible organizations operating in the alleys and basements of the city. All of them live under the eerie knowledge that their former king walks the night, a constant reminder that something is deeply wrong. You also hear the name Nulfaga whispered occasionally, often with a sign to ward off misfortune. Nulfaga is Lysandus's mother, a powerful sorceress who left the court to live in isolation. Based on what little you hear at this stage, you can assume her withdrawal and her grief may be tied to mysteries that run deeper than the public story of Lysandus's death. You do not yet know how central she will be to what follows, only that her absence from court is felt. When at last you arrange contact with the castle, you present yourself under the guise appropriate to your cover, while holding your true status as Imperial Agent Close. The Emperor's instructions echo in your mind. You must discover why Lysandus haunts Daggerfall. You must recover the missing letter. One mission can be spoken of. The other must remain in the shadows. As you cross the threshold of Castle Daggerfall, climbing toward the seat of power in this troubled kingdom, you step not only into polished halls and audience chambers, but into a web of secrets that has been woven for years. The tasks before you are now clear in shape, if not in detail. You must learn who Lysandus truly was in life, how he truly died, and what unfinished business binds his soul to the mortal world. You must uncover where the Emperor's letter went astray, and who might have seen or taken it. The War of Bettany and the Battle of Kringen Field are no longer abstractions in a history book. They are events whose consequences are still unfolding, and you are now part of that unfolding. In the quiet of your room, somewhere in the city of Daggerfall, as night falls outside and the streets grow still, you know that every step from this moment on will draw you deeper into a story that touches ghosts, kings, and powers far older than any crown. Section 2. The Web of Political Intrigue. The Iliac Bay region is a place where power is measured not in the abstract ideals of justice or honor, but in the very concrete realities of armies, trade routes, and ancient bloodlines. When you begin to investigate the mystery of King Lysandus and the Emperor's missing letter, you quickly discover that you cannot understand these specific puzzles without first understanding the greater game being played across the entire region. The Iliac Bay is home to dozens of independent kingdoms, each one jealously guarding its sovereignty, each one watching its neighbors with suspicion and calculating ambition. Before the events you are about to set in motion, there are 44 separate political entities claiming territory around this body of water. 44 rulers who call themselves king or queen or prince. And each one has their own vision of how the future should unfold. The geography itself shapes the politics of this place. The Iliac Bay is a great inlet of the Sea of Ghosts, cutting deep into the landmass where High Rock meets Hammerfell. To the north and east lie the rocky coasts and forested highlands of High Rock, the ancient homeland of the Bretons. To the south and west stretch the deserts and coastlands of Hammerfell, where the Redguards have made their home for thousands of years. The bay itself is dotted with islands, some large enough to support cities and farmland, others merely rocks protruding from the waves. Control of these islands means control of shipping lanes, fishing grounds, and strategic positions from which to project military power. High Rock is a land shaped by magic and mongrel bloodlines. The Bretons who inhabit this province are descended from the intermingling of ancient needs, and the Aldmer elves who once ruled here, particularly the Diurney clan who dominated the region in the First Era. This mixed heritage gives Bretons a natural affinity for magic, and their society reflects this. High Rock has never been united under a single banner for long. Instead, it fragments naturally into competing city-states and kingdoms, each ruled by noble houses that trace their lineage back centuries or even millennia. The Bretons are merchants, mages, and schemers, always looking for advantage through negotiation, marriage alliances, or subtle manipulation. They value cleverness and sophistication, and they have elevated political intrigue to an art form. Hammerfell, by contrast, is the land of warriors. The Redguards came to this province from the lost continent of Yokuta, sailing across the ocean in what they call the Ra-Gada, the warrior wave. They displaced or absorbed the previous inhabitants and established their own kingdoms based on martial prowess and honor. Redguard culture values strength, skill with the blade, and personal courage. Their warriors are considered the finest swordsmen in all of Tamriel, trained from childhood in techniques passed down through generations. But Hammerfell is not monolithic. The Redguards are divided into two broad factions: the Crowns, who cling to the old ways and traditions of Yokuda, and the Forebears, who have adapted more readily to life in Tamriel and cooperation with the Empire. This internal division creates its own tensions and opportunities for those who know how to exploit them. The three greatest powers in the Iliac Bay during the time of your investigation are the kingdoms of Daggerfall, Sentinel, and Wearist. These three city-states have grown over centuries to dominate their smaller neighbors through a combination of military might, economic power, and strategic positioning. Understanding these three kingdoms is essential to understanding everything that happens in the story you are living. Daggerfall, as you already know, is one of the oldest cities in High Rock. Its history stretches back to the early First Era, when it served as a base for the Diurney Elves in their conflicts with the Alessian Empire. The city has survived invasions, plagues, internal strife, and countless wars with its neighbors. Daggerfall's strength lies in its navy and its control of trade routes along the southern coast of High Rock. The city proper is home to over 110,000 people, making it one of the largest urban centers in the region. The castle that dominates the city has been expanded and reinforced over millennia, and its walls have never been breached by an enemy force. The current situation in Daggerfall is complicated by the recent death of King Lysandus. His son, Gothrid, now sits on the throne, but the young king faces challenges on every side. Gothrid is married to Queen Obkai, a Redguard princess from the kingdom of Sentinel. This marriage was arranged to bring peace after the War of Bettany, a diplomatic solution to end the bloodshed between the two kingdoms. The marriage ties Daggerfall to its former enemy, creating an alliance that many in both kingdoms view with suspicion. Obkai is a foreigner in Daggerfall, a Redguard among Bretons, and there are those who question her loyalty and her influence over the young king. Queen Mynosera, the widow of Lysandus, still resides in Castle Daggerfall, and her presence complicates the political situation further. Mynosera was a beloved queen during her husband's reign, known for her grace and intelligence, but now she is a widow, her power diminished, watching as her son rules with his new bride at his side. You will come to learn that Mynosera knows more about the circumstances of her husband's death than she has told anyone, and that the Emperor's missing letter was addressed to her specifically. What secrets did Iliac Septim share with the Queen of Daggerfall? What information did that letter contain that was so dangerous it must be recovered at all costs? There is another figure in Daggerfall whose importance cannot be overstated, though she dwells not in the castle, but in a tower outside the city. Nulfaga is a sorceress of immense power, and she was the mother of King Lysandus. Since her son's death, Nulfaga has descended into madness, or so it appears. She speaks in riddles and fragments, her mind seemingly shattered by grief and loss. But those who dismiss Nulfaga as a harmless madwoman make a grave mistake. She possesses knowledge that goes back centuries, and her magical abilities are beyond what most modern mages can comprehend. You will need to speak with Nulfaga in your investigation, and deciphering her cryptic words will be one of your greatest challenges. The kingdom of Sentinel lies to the south of Daggerfall, on the coast of Hammerfell, facing the Iliac Bay. Sentinel is the preeminent Redguard kingdom in the region, a city of warriors and merchants who have built their power through military strength and control of desert trade routes. The city itself is built in the Redguard style, with architecture adapted to the harsh climate of Hammerfell, using stone and adobe to create structures that remain cool even in the blazing heat of summer. King Camorin ruled Sentinel during the War of Bettany, but the war and its aftermath have left their mark on the kingdom's politics. Sentinel claimed the island of Bettany as their territory based on ancient contracts and historical precedent. But Daggerfall disputed this claim when Lord Maugreff of Bettany asked King Lysandus for protection against pirates. It was the spark that ignited a conflict that had been building for years. The Battle of Kringen Field ended with Lysandus dead and Sentinel forced to surrender, ceding Bettany to Daggerfall's control. This defeat stung Sentinel's pride, and there are many in the kingdom who seek revenge, or at least the restoration of their honor. But Sentinel's relationship with Daggerfall is now complicated by the marriage of Princess Obkai to King Gothrid. The princess was sent north to cement peace between the two kingdoms, a living symbol of reconciliation and alliance. Yet you sense that not everyone in Sentinel is happy with this arrangement. There are factions within the kingdom who view the marriage as a betrayal, a surrender disguised as diplomacy. The political dynamics within Sentinel's court are complex, with the Crown and Forebear factions each maneuvering for advantage, and the relationship with Daggerfall serving as yet another point of contention. The third great power is the kingdom of Wayrest, located on the eastern side of the Iliac Bay. Wayrest began as a tiny village, but over centuries, it grew to become one of the wealthiest and most powerful kingdoms in High Rock. Wayrest's rise to prominence came at the expense of other kingdoms, particularly after the fall of the First Orsinium freed up trade routes along the Bielsi River. Wayrest controls access to the interior of High Rock, and the kingdom has grown rich on trade, taxing goods that flow through its territory, and building a commercial empire that rivals Daggerfall's maritime power. King Edwire rules Wayrest during the time of your investigation, and he is known as a shrewd and capable monarch. Edwire understands that power in the Iliac Bay comes not just from armies, but from gold, influence, and information. Wayrest maintains an extensive network of spies and agents throughout the region, gathering intelligence on friend and foe alike. The kingdom's wealth allows it to hire mercenaries, bribe officials, and manipulate markets to its advantage. Edwire has a daughter, Princess Elisana, who is said to be even more cunning and ambitious than her father. You will hear whispers about Elisana, suggestions that she is willing to do whatever is necessary to advance her interests and those of Wearist. But the political landscape of the Iliac Bay is not limited to these three major powers. There are dozens of smaller kingdoms, each with its own history and aspirations. The kingdom of Anticlear, located between Daggerfall and Wearist, struggles to maintain its independence while caught between two much stronger neighbors. The kingdom of Orsinium represents something entirely new and potentially revolutionary, an attempt by the orcs to establish a legitimate kingdom that will be recognized by the other powers of the region. Gortwerg is the name you will come to know well, for he is the warlord who united the scattered orc tribes and declared himself King of Orsinium. The orcs have long been despised and persecuted throughout Tamriel, viewed as monsters or savages fit only for extermination. But Gortwerg has a vision of something different. He believes that the orcs can build a civilization to rival the kingdoms of men and elves, that they can be accepted as equals rather than treated as beasts. The first Orsinium was destroyed in the First Era, razed to the ground by a coalition of human kingdoms led by Daggerfall. Now Gortwerg is rebuilding, gathering orcs from across the region and establishing a new Orsinium in the mountains between High Rock and Hammerfell. The other kingdoms watch Orsinium with a mixture of fear and disdain. To many, the idea of an orc kingdom is an abomination, a threat to the natural order of things. But Gortwerg is no simple warlord. He is intelligent, educated, and surprisingly diplomatic. He seeks allies where he can find them, and he understands that Orsinium's survival depends not just on military strength, but on gaining legitimacy in the eyes of the other powers. You will find that Gortwerg's ambitions are tied to the same ancient powers and artifacts that drive so much of the conflict in the Iliac Bay, and that the future he envisions is as valid as any other. Beyond the kingdoms themselves, there are other forces at work in the Iliac Bay, factions that operate across borders and pursue their own agendas. The Blades, the Emperor's secret intelligence service, maintain agents throughout the region. You yourself might be considered part of the Blades network, though your direct loyalty is to Iliac Septim himself. The Blades work to protect the Empire's interests, to gather information, and to counter threats before they can materialize. But the Blades are not omnipotent, and in the Iliac Bay, their influence is limited by the fractured political landscape and the independence of the local rulers. The various guilds also play important roles in regional politics. The Fighters Guild provides mercenaries and security services to anyone who can pay their fees, operating chapter houses in every major city. The Mages Guild controls access to magical knowledge, and services, and their political neutrality makes them valuable intermediaries in disputes between kingdoms. The Thieves' Guild operates in the shadows, stealing from the rich and maintaining their own code of honor that prohibits certain types of theft. There are also numerous knightly orders, each sworn to different ideals and causes, from the Knights of the Dragon serving Daggerfall to various religious orders devoted to the divines. The temples themselves wield significant influence in the Iliac Bay. The 9 divines, as worshipped in the empire, have temples throughout the region. But there are also older, more primal forms of worship that persist in rural areas and among certain populations. The priests and priestesses of these temples provide healing, counsel, and sometimes political backing to the rulers they favor. Religious authority can be a powerful tool for legitimizing claims to power or delegitimizing one's enemies. As you navigate the courts and power centers of the Iliac Bay, you begin to understand that everyone has secrets, everyone has agendas, and everyone is trying to use you for their own purposes. When you meet with the rulers of these kingdoms, they will smile and offer assistance, but you sense the calculations happening behind their eyes. What do you know? What can you offer them? How can you be manipulated or controlled? The nobility of the Iliac Bay are masters of intrigue, and you are walking into a game that has been playing out for generations. You learn about the various noble houses that dominate politics within each kingdom. These houses have intermarried over centuries, creating tangled webs of blood relationships and ancient grudges. A slight given 3 generations ago might still motivate actions today. A marriage alliance that seemed beneficial at the time might have created obligations that now prove burdensome. The great houses rise and fall over time, but they never truly disappear. Even a house that has lost its lands and titles might still have members plotting to restore their fortunes. The common people of the Iliac Bay have little say in these grand political games, but they are the ones who ultimately pay the price for the ambitions of their rulers. When kingdoms go to war, it is the peasants who are conscripted to fight and die. When trade routes are disrupted by conflict, it is the merchants and craftspeople who suffer economic hardship. When plagues sweep through the land, as they often do in this crowded region, it is the poor who lack access to magical healing and die in the greatest numbers. You see this suffering as you travel through the region. The villages struggling to survive, the beggars in city streets, the orphans created by endless wars. Yet life goes on as it always does. Markets bustle with activity, taverns fill with drinkers and storytellers, farmers plant and harvest their crops, fishermen cast their nets into the bay. The people of this region are resilient, adapted to living in a place where political stability is fleeting and violence can erupt at any moment. They have learned to keep their heads down, to avoid attracting the attention of the powerful, and to make the best of whatever circumstances they find themselves in. as you pursue your investigation into the death of King Lysandus and the location of the Emperor's letter. You cannot help but see how these two mysteries fit into the larger political landscape. Lysandus's death removed a stabilizing force from the region, a king who commanded respect and maintained Daggerfall's position through strength and diplomacy. His ghost now haunts the city, a symbol of unresolved injustice or unfinished business. Whatever truth the ghost can reveal about how Lysandus died could shift the balance of power in the Iliac Bay, could provide ammunition to enemies or vindication to allies. The Emperor's letter, meanwhile, represents unknown dangers. What did Iliac Septim write to Queen Mynisera? Was it personal correspondence, matters of state, or something else entirely? The fact that the Emperor is so desperate to recover, it suggests that its contents could damage the Empire's interests or embarrass the imperial throne. In a region as volatile as the Iliac Bay, information is power, and whoever possesses that letter holds leverage over the Emperor himself. You realize, as you delve deeper into your investigation, that you have become a piece on a very large game board. Multiple factions are watching you, trying to determine what you know and what you might discover. Some offer help, providing clues and resources that guide you toward certain conclusions. Others work to hinder you, sending assassins or planting false information to lead you astray. You must constantly evaluate the motivations of those you encounter, questioning whether the assistance they offer is genuine or part of some larger manipulation. The web of political intrigue in the Iliac Bay is so complex that you sometimes feel overwhelmed by it. Every action has consequences that ripple outward in ways you cannot predict. A word spoken in confidence might be repeated to your enemies. A favor granted to one faction might create resentment in another. The alliances you form today might become liabilities tomorrow as the political situation shifts. This is the reality of operating in a place where dozens of powers compete for advantage, and no one can be fully trusted. Yet you press forward because you must. The Emperor has given you a mission, and you are determined to see it through. The ghost of Lysandus deserves peace. Whatever secrets must be uncovered to provide it. The mystery of the missing letter must be solved, whatever dangers that solution might bring. And beyond these immediate concerns, you sense that larger forces are at work. Ancient powers stirring that dwarf the petty squabbles of the Bay Kings. The political intrigue of the Iliac Bay is merely the surface layer of a much deeper and more dangerous game. One that involves artifacts of immense power and decisions that will reshape the entire region. Section 3: Ancient Powers and Forgotten Weapons. As you delve deeper into the mystery of King Lysandus's death and the Emperor's missing letter, you begin to uncover threads that lead to something far older and more terrible than the political squabbles of the Iliac Bay kingdoms. There are whispers in dark corners, fragments of conversation overheard in taverns, cryptic hints dropped by those who know more than they say. These whispers speak of ancient weapons, of powers that predate the empire itself, of artifacts that could reshape the very fabric of reality. At first, you dismiss these rumors as legend and fantasy, the sort of tales that grow in the telling until they bear no resemblance to truth. But as your investigation progresses, you realize with growing dread that these legends are real, that forces beyond your comprehension are stirring, and that the fate you are being drawn toward is connected to powers that should have remained buried and forgotten. The name you hear most often, spoken in hushed tones by those who understand its significance, is Numidium, the brass god, the second Numidium, walk brass. It has many names, each one carrying its own weight of terror and wonder. The Numidium is not a legend. It is a historical fact, a weapon of such devastating power that it changed the course of Tamrielic history. To understand what is truly at stake in the Iliac Bay, you must understand what the Numidium is, where it came from, and why so many powerful figures would risk everything to control it. The Numidium was built by the Dwemer, the lost race of deep elves who vanished from Tamriel thousands of years ago in circumstances that remain mysterious to this day. The Dwemer were master craftsmen and engineers, combining magic and technology in ways that modern scholars can barely comprehend. They built vast underground cities, created mechanical servants called animunculi, and pursued knowledge with a single-minded determination that bordered on obsession. Their greatest creation, their ultimate achievement, was the Numidium. It was a massive construct, a giant made of brass and other materials, animated by principles that blended the mechanical and the mystical in unprecedented ways. The Dwemer intended the Numidium to be a god, or perhaps more accurately, a tool for denying the existence of gods. The philosophy behind its creation is complex and difficult for non-Dwemer to grasp fully. But the essential purpose was clear. The Numidium was a weapon capable of imposing the will of its controllers on reality itself. When activated, it could march across the land, destroying entire armies, leveling cities, and remaking the world according to the desires of those who commanded it. The Numidium was meant to be powered by the heart of Lorkhan, the literal heart of a dead god that the Dwemer had discovered beneath Red Mountain in Morrowind. But the Dwemer never got to use their creation for its intended purpose. In the year 700 of the First Era, the entire Dwemer race vanished in an instant, disappearing from existence in circumstances that remain one of the great unsolved mysteries of Tamrielic history. The prevailing theory is that their disappearance was connected to their experiments with the heart of Lorkhan, that they attempted something catastrophically ambitious and paid the ultimate price. Whatever the truth, the Dwemer were gone, and their great works, including the Numidium, were left behind, dormant and incomplete. The Numidium remained in Morrowind for centuries, a silent colossus standing in the ruins of Dwemer settlements, too massive and complex for anyone to understand or activate. The Chimer, who would later become the Dunmer, claimed control of the heart of Lorcan and used its power to create their own godlike beings, the Tribunal. The Numidium seemed destined to remain forever inactive, a monument to Dwemer ambition and folly. But then came Tiber Septim, the man who would conquer all of Tamriel and found the Third Empire. Tiber Septim was born H. Jalti Earlybeard in the province of High Rock, and through a combination of military genius, political cunning, and ruthless ambition, he rose to become the most powerful figure in Tamriel. He united the fractious kingdoms of Tamriel under imperial rule, but his conquest was not achieved through conventional military might alone. Tiber Septim possessed a weapon that made him virtually unstoppable, and that weapon was the Numidium. How Tiber Septim gained control of the Numidium is a story unto itself, involving betrayal, bargaining, and the sacrifice of those closest to him. The key to activating the Numidium was finding an alternative power source. Since the heart of Lorcan was no longer accessible, the solution came in the form of an artifact called the Mantella, a massive soul gem of unprecedented power. But the Mantella was not just any soul gem. It contained within it the life force of a living being, a soul torn from its body and imprisoned in crystal to serve as the engine that would drive the brass god. The soul trapped in the Mantella belonged to someone who had been close to Tiber Septim, someone who had been betrayed and sacrificed for the sake of empire. The exact identity of this individual remains a matter of scholarly debate, though many accounts point to Zurin Arctus, who served as imperial battle mage during the conquest. What is certain is that this soul's imprisonment created the being known as the Undurking, existing in perpetual torment between life and death. The exact identity and circumstances are shrouded in conflicting accounts and deliberate obfuscation. But what is clear is that the creation of the Mantella was an act of supreme evil, a violation of the natural order that created a curse echoing through the centuries. The being whose soul was trapped came to be known as the Undurking, and his existence is one of unending torment and rage. The Undurking is not truly alive, nor is he properly dead. He exists in a state of perpetual undeath, his physical form sustained by necromantic power, while his soul remains imprisoned in the Mantella. The Undurking cannot rest, cannot move on to whatever afterlife awaits mortal souls, because he is split between two states of being. His hatred for those who did this to him is boundless, and his desire to be made whole again, to finally achieve the death that has been denied him, drives every action he takes. The Undurking has existed for centuries, watching empires rise and fall, accumulating power and knowledge, waiting for the opportunity to reclaim his soul and end his torment. With the Mantella installed as its power source, the Numidium became operational. and Tiber Septim used it to complete his conquest of Tamriel. The brass god marched across the land, and no force could stand against it. When the Numidium appeared on a battlefield, armies broke and ran. Cities surrendered rather than face destruction. The rulers of independent kingdoms bent the knee to Tiber Septim, acknowledging him as emperor, because the alternative was annihilation. The conquest was swift and brutal. And when it was done, Tamriel was united under the Third Empire, with Tiber Septim ruling as the first emperor of a new dynasty. But even Tiber Septim recognized that the Numidium was too dangerous to keep active. The power it represented was corrupting, and the risk of it falling into the wrong hands was too great. After the conquest was complete, the Numidium was deactivated, and the mantella was removed. The giant construct was disassembled, its pieces scattered and hidden. The mantella itself was sent away, placed in a location where it would be safe from those who might seek to use it. For hundreds of years, the Numidium remained dormant, its legend fading into history, known to scholars, but considered a relic of the past, no longer relevant to the present age. But nothing that powerful can remain hidden forever. In the Iliac Bay, in the time of your investigation, there are those who know about the Numidium, who have learned where its pieces are hidden, and who seek to claim it for themselves. The key to controlling the Numidium is an artifact called the Totem of Tiber Septim. This totem is a device that allows its bearer to command the brass god, to direct its terrible power toward whatever ends they desire. Whoever possesses both the totem and the mantella can activate the Numidium and use it just as Tiber Septim did centuries ago. In the fractured political landscape of the Iliac Bay, where multiple kingdoms compete for supremacy, the Numidium represents the ultimate trump card, the weapon that could decide the fate of the entire region. Your investigation into the death of King Lysandus leads you, inevitably, to the truth about these ancient powers. The ghost of Lysandus haunts Daggerfall because he cannot rest, because he knows that his death was not what it seemed, and because there are secrets that must be revealed. When you finally manage to communicate with the ghost, using magical means or ritual practices learned from various sources, Lysandus tells you a story of betrayal and murder. King Lysandus was not killed by the forces of Sentinel in honest battle, as the official accounts claim. He was murdered by someone on his own side, someone he trusted. The name the ghost speaks is Lord Woodbourne, a nobleman of Daggerfall who fought alongside Lysandus at the Battle of Cringan Field. Woodbourne was driven by jealousy and ambition, but also by the manipulations of others who saw advantage in removing the king. During the chaos of battle, Woodbourne struck Lysandus down, and the king's death was attributed to the enemy. Woodbourne has kept this secret, living with his guilt and his prize, knowing that exposure would mean his destruction. But there is more to the story, layers of tragedy that go beyond simple betrayal. Lord Woodbourne was in love with a woman named Medora Diarny, a sorceress of considerable power and a member of the ancient Diarny clan that once ruled much of High Rock. Medora lived in a tower outside the city of Daggerfall, pursuing her magical studies and living apart from the political machinations of the court. Woodbourne courted her, and for a time they were together, but Medora's affections were not solely his. She had also attracted the attention of King Lysandus himself. Lysandus was married to Queen Mynosera, and by all accounts, their marriage was strong. But the king was drawn to Medora nonetheless, captivated by her beauty and her power. Whether their relationship was consummated or remained one of courtly admiration is unclear. But Woodbourne perceived it as a betrayal, as the king taking what should have been his. This jealousy festered in Woodbourne's heart, poisoning his loyalty and making him susceptible to darker influences. There were those who wanted Lysandus dead for political reasons, who saw his removal as necessary for their own plans. These conspirators found a willing tool in Lord Woodbourne, encouraging his jealousy and providing him with the means and opportunity to strike. The murder of Lysandus was not a crime of passion committed in the heat of battle. It was a calculated assassination, carefully planned and executed, with Woodbourne serving as the weapon wielded by others. After Lysandus's death, the relationship between Woodbourne and Medora deteriorated. Perhaps Medora discovered what Woodbourne had done, or perhaps she simply sensed the darkness that now inhabited him. They separated, and Medora retreated further into her studies, while Woodbourne remained at court in Daggerfall, maintaining his position and his secrets. The truth of what happened at Cringan Field was buried, and it might have remained buried forever if not for the ghost of Lysandus refusing to rest. As you uncover these truths about Lysandus's death, you also learn more about the larger conspiracy surrounding the Numidium and the Mantella. The various powers in the Iliac Bay have become aware of these ancient artifacts, and each is maneuvering to claim them. The Totem of Tiber Septim has been hidden somewhere in the region, and different factions are searching for it, using every resource at their disposal. The Mantella, meanwhile, has been sent to a place called Etherius, the realm of magic and souls that exists beyond the mortal plane. Retrieving it will require powerful magic and knowledge that few possess. One person who has crucial knowledge about these matters is Nulfaga, the mad sorceress who was King Lysandus's mother. Nulfaga dwells in Castle Shedungent, a fortress in the mountains of Rithgarian, and she has not been seen in Daggerfall since her son's death. When you seek her out, traveling through treacherous terrain to reach her isolated stronghold, you find a woman whose mind seems broken by grief and loss. Nulfaga speaks in riddles and fragments, her words often making no sense to those who hear them. But within her apparent madness lies deep wisdom and knowledge that spans centuries. Nulfaga knows about the Numidium. She knows about the Mantella and where it has been sent. She knows about the totem and the forces competing to claim it. She even knows about the Undurking and his curse, about the soul trapped in the mantella crying out for release. Nulfaga's madness may be partly genuine, the result of a mother's grief for her murdered son, but it is also partly an act, a protective shell that allows her to hide from those who would use her knowledge for their own purposes. When you speak with Nulfaga, piecing together the coherent threads from her cryptic utterances, you begin to understand the true scope of what is happening. The various powers of the Iliac Bay are not just competing for political advantage. They are racing to claim a weapon that could make them supreme, that could allow them to dominate the entire region and potentially challenge even the empire itself. The Numidium is not just a military weapon. It is a reality-altering artifact, a device that can impose its controller's will on the very structure of existence. The Emperor's missing letter, you realize, is connected to all of this. Iliac Septim wrote to Queen Mynosera because he had learned something about the conspiracy surrounding the Numidium, or perhaps because he sought her help in preventing its activation. The letter's contents could expose the plot or provide crucial information about the location of the artifacts. No wonder the Emperor is desperate to recover it. No wonder so many others are searching for it as well. As you gather this information, as the pieces of the puzzle fall into place, you understand that you are caught up in events far larger than a simple murder investigation. The death of King Lysandus was part of a larger pattern, connected to the schemes of those seeking the Numidium. The haunting of Daggerfall is not just about one ghost seeking justice. It is about the weight of history, about old sins coming back to demand payment, about the way the past reaches forward to shape the present. The Undurking, too, is active in the Iliac Bay, though few realize it. He has agents searching for the mantella, desperate to reclaim his soul, and finally achieve the death that has been denied him for centuries. The Undurking does not care about the political situation in the Iliac Bay, does not care about which kingdom rises or falls. He cares only about ending his curse, about being made whole again. But his actions will have consequences for everyone in the region, whether he intends them or not. You stand now at the center of a web of ancient powers and modern ambitions, holding pieces of knowledge that many would kill to possess. The ghost of Lysandus has told you about his murder, giving you information that could shake the foundations of Daggerfall's court. Nulfaga has shared her knowledge about the Numidium and the mantella terrible secrets that put your life in danger simply by knowing them. The various factions are watching you, trying to determine how much you know, and whether you can be used to further their goals. The revelation of these ancient powers changes everything about your mission. What began as an investigation into a haunting has become something far more consequential. The stakes are no longer just about laying a ghost to rest or recovering a letter for the Emperor. The stakes now involve the fate of entire kingdoms, the balance of power in an entire region, and potentially the future of the empire itself. The Numidium waits, dormant, but not destroyed, ready to wake and walk once more if the right keys are turned, if the totem and the mantella are brought together. Section 4. The Hunt Across the Iliac Bay. The knowledge you have gained weighs heavily upon you. Understanding what the Numidium is, knowing about the mantella and the totem, recognizing the scope of the conspiracy surrounding these ancient powers. All of this transforms your mission from a simple investigation into something far more complex and dangerous. But knowledge alone is not enough. You must act on what you have learned, must follow the threads of this conspiracy wherever they lead. Even if the path takes you into the darkest corners of the Iliac Bay, the hunt begins in earnest now. A race against time and against enemies both known and unknown. As you seek the artifacts and answers that will determine the fate of nations. Your first task is to find the Totem of Tiber Septim. This artifact is the key to controlling the Numidium, and without it, the brass god cannot be commanded. The totem was hidden centuries ago, after Tiber Septim's conquest was complete, placed somewhere secure where it would not fall into the wrong hands. But someone knows where it is. Someone has been searching for it, perhaps has even found it. Your investigation must uncover who has the totem, or at the very least, where it has been hidden all these long years. The clues come to you in fragments, pieces of a puzzle scattered across the region. You receive letters from mysterious sources, unsigned messages delivered by couriers who disappear before you can question them. These letters contain cryptic hints about locations and people, riddles that must be deciphered before they can yield useful information. Some letters lead you to ancient ruins, Dwemer installations long abandoned, but still holding secrets in their mechanical depths. Other letters point you towards specific individuals, nobles or scholars who possess knowledge about the artifacts you seek. One particularly important lead takes you to the ruins of a place deep beneath the earth, a Dwemer stronghold that has lain untouched for thousands of years. The journey to reach this place is perilous in itself. You must travel through wilderness infested with dangerous creatures, navigate terrain that would challenge even experienced explorers, and finally descend into darkness that seems to press against your very soul. The Dwemer ruins are like nothing else in Tamriel. The architecture is alien, all straight lines and mechanical precision, so different from the organic curves of elven design or the sturdy practicality of human construction. As you explore these ruins, you encounter the remnants of Dwemer technology. Mechanical spiders skitter through corridors, their metal legs clicking against stone floors. Centurions, massive constructs of brass and steel, still guard certain chambers, programmed centuries ago to protect whatever secrets the Dwemer deemed important. These machines attack without mercy or hesitation, and you must use all your skills to survive their onslaught. The deeper you descend, the more you feel the weight of ages pressing down upon you. The sense that you are trespassing in a place where mortals were never meant to walk. In the heart of one such ruin, you discover a chamber containing ancient texts, records left by the Dwemer before their disappearance. The writing is in their language, incomprehensible to most, but you have learned enough or found translations that allow you to extract meaning from these documents. The texts speak of the Numidium, of the principles underlying its construction, of the power source it requires to function. The Dwemer were meticulous record keepers, and their accounts provide details that few living scholars possess. This knowledge is valuable, but it also makes you a target. There are others who would kill to possess what you have learned. Your hunt for the totem eventually leads you to realize that the artifact has been kept in a place called Ithurius, or more specifically, in a pocket realm connected to Ithurius. This is the same place where the Mantella has been sent, the realm of magic and souls that exists beyond the mortal world. Retrieving anything from Ithurius requires powerful magic, rituals that few mages in the current age can perform. You must seek out those who have the knowledge and ability to open a path to that realm. And such individuals are rare and often demand steep prices for their assistance. The Blades, the Emperor's intelligence service, maintain a presence in the Iliac Bay, and their agents begin to make contact with you as your investigation progresses. Lady Brysiana Magnuson is the primary Blades operative in the region, a woman of considerable skill and cunning, who serves as the Emperor's eyes and ears. Brysiana operates from the shadows, maintaining a cover identity while conducting her true work. When she approaches you, it is with offers of assistance and information, but also with expectations. The Blades want to know what you have discovered. They want to ensure that the Emperor's interests are protected, that whatever happens with the Numidium and the Mantella serves the Empire rather than threatening it. Brysiana provides you with resources and contacts that prove invaluable. She has access to intelligence networks that span the entire region, informants in every major court, spies in guilds and merchant houses. Through her, you learn about the movements of other factions, about who is searching for what, about alliances being formed and betrayals being planned. But you also recognize that working with the Blades comes with its own complications. Everything you tell Brysiana goes back to the Emperor, and not all information should be shared. You must carefully balance what you reveal and what you keep to yourself, maintaining enough independence to pursue your own judgment while still benefiting from Imperial support. The race for the totem involves multiple competing factions, each with their own agents and resources. The Kingdom of Daggerfall seeks the totem because controlling the Numidium would cement their position as the dominant power in the Iliac Bay. Young King Gothrid may lack his father's experience, but he is ambitious and willing to take risks to secure his kingdom's future. Daggerfall's agents are searching ruins, questioning scholars, following the same leads you are pursuing. Sometimes you encounter them in the field, and these meetings can be tense, each side sizing up the other, wondering if cooperation or conflict serves their interests better. The kingdom of Werest is equally determined to claim the ancient artifacts. King Edwire and his daughter Princess Elisana recognize that whoever controls the Numidium will be able to dictate terms to everyone else in the region. Werest has wealth and information networks that rival even the Blades, and they use these advantages aggressively. Elisana, in particular, is said to be utterly ruthless, willing to use any means necessary to achieve her goals. You hear stories about people who crossed her, about mysterious deaths and convenient accidents that removed obstacles from Werest's path. Whether these stories are true or merely propaganda is difficult to determine, but you take them seriously enough to be cautious in your dealings with Werest's representatives. Sentinel, the Redguard kingdom that fought against Daggerfall in the War of Bettany, also has a stake in the outcome. The warriors of Sentinel value honor and martial prowess, but they are not naive about politics. They understand that the Numidium represents power beyond what any conventional army can match. Prince Latan, who will someday rule Sentinel, is involved in the search for the artifacts, and he has his own reasons for wanting to control them. The relationship between Sentinel and Daggerfall is complicated by the marriage of Princess Obkai to King Gothrid. Obkai serves as a bridge between the two kingdoms, but she is also pulled in different directions by divided loyalties. Gortwerg and the Kingdom of Orsinium see the Numidium as a tool that could finally secure recognition and legitimacy for the Orc people. For centuries, Orcs have been persecuted and marginalized, treated as monsters rather than as people with their own culture and aspirations. Gortwerg believes that if Orsinium controls the Numidium, the other kingdoms will have no choice but to acknowledge Orc sovereignty and treat them as equals. This vision drives him and his agents as they search for the totem and plan for what they will do once they possess it. Gortwerg is intelligent and pragmatic, and he has built alliances with unlikely partners in pursuit of his goals. Then there is the Undurking, whose agents move through the shadows pursuing their own agenda. The Undurking does not care about political supremacy or territorial control. He cares only about reclaiming his soul from the Mantella so that he can finally die. His agents are often necromancers and undead creatures, beings who serve the Undurking out of loyalty or compulsion. These agents are dangerous in different ways than the political operatives of the various kingdoms. They do not negotiate or compromise. They pursue their goal with single-minded determination, and anyone who stands in their way is destroyed. As you navigate this web of competing factions, you must also explore the physical locations where clues and artifacts might be hidden. The Iliac Bay is dotted with ancient ruins, not just Dwemer installations, but also the remnants of earlier human and elven civilizations. There are crypts where the honored dead of ancient noble houses are interred, their tombs guarded by magical wards and undead sentinels. There are abandoned fortresses from long-forgotten wars, their dungeons and vaults still holding treasures and secrets. There are caves and natural caverns that have been used for various purposes over the millennia, some as smuggler hideouts, others as temples to dark gods, still others as prisons for creatures too dangerous to be allowed to roam free. Each location you explore presents its own challenges. Some dungeons are straightforward, linear paths through chambers filled with enemies and traps. Others are vast labyrinths where you can easily become lost, wandering through identical corridors until you lose all sense of direction. The dungeons of the Iliac Bay are notorious for their complexity, their tendency to extend deep underground through multiple levels, their confusing layouts that seem designed to disorient intruders. You learn to mark your path, to leave signs that will help you retrace your steps, to map out the spaces you explore so that you do not waste time covering the same ground repeatedly. The dangers within these dungeons are real and immediate. You face creatures both natural and supernatural. Giant bats swarm from dark corners, their fangs carrying disease. Rats of unusual size attack in packs, overwhelming lone travelers. Undead creatures, from simple skeletons to powerful liches, haunt the deeper levels, their hatred of the living driving them to attack anything warm-blooded that enters their domain. There are also Daedra, creatures from the plains of oblivion who have been summoned and bound to guard specific locations or objects. Fighting Daedra requires special weapons and tactics, as many of them are immune to normal steel. Traps add another layer of danger to dungeon exploration. Pressure plates trigger dart launchers or swinging blades. False floors give way to spike-filled pits. Magical wards blast intruders with fire or lightning, or drain their life force. Some traps are ancient, their mechanisms corroded and unreliable, which makes them more dangerous rather than less. An old trap might not trigger when you step on its pressure plate, only to activate moments later when you have relaxed your guard. You learn to move carefully through dungeons, testing each step, watching for signs of trap mechanisms, using spells or abilities to detect magical wards before they can harm you. The deeper you delve into your investigation, the more you realize that the conspiracy surrounding the Numidium involves figures from across the entire social spectrum. Nobles and merchants, mages and priests, thieves and assassins, all have been drawn into this web in one way or another. Some are active participants, knowingly working to claim the ancient artifacts. Others are unwitting tools, manipulated by cleverer minds to serve purposes they do not understand. Still others are simply caught in the middle, trying to survive in a situation where any wrong move could prove fatal. You receive another letter, this one directing you to speak with Prince Lawton of Sentinel. prince has information about the emperor's missing letter, or so the message claims. Traveling to Sentinel means entering the territory of a kingdom that was recently at war with Daggerfall, a place where your status as an imperial agent might not protect you. But the lead is too important to ignore. You make the journey south into Hammerfell, crossing from the forests and hills of high rock into the more arid landscape of the Redguard homeland. Sentinel is impressive, a city that combines military strength with commercial prosperity. The palace where Prince Lawton resides is built in the Redguard style, with courtyards open to the sky and fountains that provide relief from the heat. When you meet with Lawton, you find him to be a thoughtful man, more politician than warrior despite his Redguard heritage. He speaks carefully, weighing each word, clearly considering what he should reveal and what he should keep hidden. Lawton does have information about the Emperor's letter, though he may not give it freely. What he wants in exchange becomes a negotiation, a dance of offers and counteroffers as each of you tries to gain advantage. Similar meetings occur with other major figures in the region. Princess Morja of Wayrest, King Eadwire's other daughter, has her own involvement in the conspiracy. Morja is different from her sister Elisana, more mystical and less overtly ambitious, but no less dangerous for that. She has made pacts with powers that most would fear to approach, seeking knowledge and advantage through channels that others avoid. When you speak with Morja, you sense that she knows far more than she says, that she sees patterns and connections that remain hidden from others. Each conversation, each dungeon explored, each clue uncovered, brings you closer to understanding the full scope of what is happening. The Totem of Tiber Septim has been hidden in a specific location, protected by powerful magic and guardians that have endured for centuries. The Mantella remains in Etherius, but there are ways to retrieve it, rituals that can open a path between the mortal world and that realm of magic and souls. The various factions are all moving toward the same goal, racing to be the first to claim the artifacts and activate the Numidium. And you stand at the center of it all, holding pieces of the puzzle that no one else possesses. Your investigation into the death of King Lysandus has given you knowledge about the conspiracy that few others have. Your exploration of ancient ruins has provided information about the Numidium's location and condition. Your conversations with the powerful have revealed their motivations and plans. You are no longer just an agent carrying out the Emperor's mission. You have become a key player in the game yourself, someone whose choices will shape what happens next. The hunt across the Iliac Bay has taken you to every corner of the region, from the courts of kings to the depths of ancient dungeons, from libraries filled with dusty tomes to battlefields where old wars were fought. You have made allies and enemies, have learned secrets that others died to protect, have survived dangers that would have killed lesser travelers. And now, as you piece together all that you have learned, you begin to see the endgame approaching. The race for the totem and the mantella is reaching its climax. And soon, very soon, someone will activate the Numidium. When that happens, the world will change, and nothing will ever be the same again. Section 5. The Mantella and the Terrible Choice. The pieces are falling into place, but the most crucial elements remain out of reach. You have learned where the Totem of Tiber Septim is hidden, understand its purpose, and know that multiple factions are racing to claim it. But the totem alone is not enough. Without the mantella, the sole gem that powers the Numidium, the brass god will remain dormant no matter who possesses the control device. The mantella exists in Ithurius, the realm of magic and spirits that lies beyond the mortal plane, and retrieving it will require magic of a magnitude that few living mages can command. This is the next stage of your quest, the moment when you must reach beyond the physical world and grasp something that was never meant to return. Nulfaga, the mad sorceress who was King Lysandus's mother, holds the key to accessing Ithurius. Despite her apparent madness, or perhaps because of it, Nulfaga possesses knowledge and power that transcend ordinary magical understanding. When you return to her tower at Shedungent, navigating the treacherous mountains of Rithgarian once more, she speaks to you in her fractured way, her words seeming to come from multiple times and places at once. She knows that you seek the mantella. She knows what it contains and what retrieving it will mean. And she knows, better than anyone, the price that will be paid when the Numidium walks again. Nulfaga provides the knowledge necessary to retrieve the mantella from Ithurius, the realm where it has been sent for safekeeping. The specifics of the ritual required are complex, involving magic that few modern mages can comprehend. Through Nulfaga's guidance, you gain access to this otherworldly realm, navigating its strange geometries to locate the sole gem that powers the Numidium. The mantella, when you find it, is both smaller and more significant than you imagined. It appears as a crystalline gem, pulsing with inner light, beautiful in the way that dangerous things often are. But you can feel the soul trapped within it, the anguished consciousness that has been imprisoned for centuries, screaming silently for release. This is the power source that drove the Numidium when Tiber Septim conquered Tamriel. This is the Undurking's soul, torn from his body and bound to serve a purpose he never chose. Claiming the mantella feels like a violation, like stealing something sacred, but you take it nonetheless because the alternative is to leave it here and allow someone else to eventually claim it. Returning to the mortal world with the mantella is disorienting. The transition from Ithurius back to physical reality, jarring in ways that leave you shaken for days afterward. But you have succeeded where others failed. You possess both the mantella and, through your investigations, knowledge of where the Totem of Tiber Septim lies. These two artifacts together represent the keys to ultimate power in the Iliac Bay. the means to activate and control a weapon that can reshape nations. And now comes the terrible part, the burden that you alone must bear. You must decide who will receive these artifacts. You must choose who will control the Numidium. The factions who seek the totem and mantella each approach you with their arguments, their promises, their visions of what they will do with the power you can give them. Some are honest about their intentions. Others dress their ambitions in noble language, claiming to serve higher purposes while pursuing their own interests. You listen to each of them, weighing their words, trying to determine which path will cause the least harm, which choice serves the greater good. But there is no clear answer, no option that does not involve terrible consequences. The kingdom of Daggerfall makes its case through King Gothrid and his representatives. Daggerfall is one of the oldest kingdoms in High Rock, they argue, with a history of stability and responsible governance stretching back thousands of years. If Daggerfall controls the Numidium, it can unite the Iliac Bay under a single strong ruler, ending the endless cycle of petty wars between competing kingdoms. Peace through strength, they promise, an end to the bloodshed that has plagued this region for generations. Daggerfall has the infrastructure, the experience, the traditions necessary to rule justly and well. Give them the totem and mantella, and they will use the Numidium to create lasting peace. But you remember the War of Betony. Remember how that conflict erupted over a small island that both Daggerfall and Sentinel claimed. You remember the death of King Lysandus, the ghost that haunted the streets until you uncovered the truth of his murder. Daggerfall's history is long, but it is not unblemished. The kingdom has its own ambitions, its own grudges against its neighbors. Would Gothrid use the Numidium responsibly, or would he use it to settle old scores, to expand Daggerfall's territory at the expense of other kingdoms? Can any single kingdom be trusted with such overwhelming power? The kingdom of Wayrest presents a different vision, one articulated most forcefully by Princess Elisana, who has emerged as the true power behind her father king, Eadwyre's throne. Wayrest has risen from a tiny fishing village to become one of the wealthiest and most powerful kingdoms in the Iliac Bay through superior economic management and diplomatic skill. Elisana argues Wayrest understands trade, understands how to build prosperity that benefits everyone rather than just the ruling class. If Wayrest controls the Numidium, they will use it not for conquest, but for establishing a commercial empire that brings wealth and stability to the entire region. Elisana speaks persuasively, her intelligence and cunning evident in every word. She paints a picture of a future where the kingdoms of the Iliac Bay cooperate instead of compete, where trade routes are protected and commerce flourishes, where everyone prospers under Wayrest's benevolent oversight. But you have heard the stories about Elisana, the rumors of what she has done to those who stood in her way. You sense in her a ruthlessness that goes beyond pragmatism, a willingness to do anything to achieve her goals. Would the future she envisions truly be better? Or would it simply replace military conquest with economic domination? The Kingdom of Sentinel offers yet another perspective, one rooted in honor and martial tradition. Prince Latun and the other representatives of Sentinel argue that the Red Guards understand warfare better than any other people in Tamriel. They have a code of honor that governs their actions, a sense of responsibility that comes from their warrior culture. If Sentinel controls the Numidium, they will use it to protect the weak, to uphold justice, to maintain order without oppression. The Red Guards do not seek empire for its own sake. They seek to preserve their way of life and ensure that honor prevails over treachery. You are moved by Sentinel's arguments, by the genuine belief in honor and justice that you hear in their voices. But you also remember that honor can be rigid, that codes of conduct can be used to justify actions that harm innocents. The War of Bettany began over questions of honor and ancient claims. Would Sentinel's control of the Numidium truly bring justice? Or would it impose one culture's values on others who do not share them? Can honor survive the corrupting influence of absolute power? Gortwerg and the Kingdom of Orsinium make an argument that is both the most radical and, in some ways, the most compelling. The orcs have been persecuted for millennia. Gortwerg tells you, treated as monsters and beasts, denied the basic dignity that every sapient race deserves. The destruction of the first Orsinium was an atrocity, a genocide committed by the kingdoms of men who feared what they did not understand. Now, with the Numidium, Orsinium can secure its survival and force the other kingdoms to recognize orc sovereignty. This is not about conquest or revenge, Gortwerg insists. This is about justice, about the orcs finally taking their rightful place among the civilized nations of Tamriel. Gortwerg's passion is undeniable, and his vision of an Orsinium that stands as an equal among the kingdoms of the Iliac Bay is genuinely inspiring. But you also understand the fear that such a development would create. The other kingdoms have fought against orcs for generations. The prejudices run deep, and reversing them will not be easy. If Orsinium suddenly possessed the ultimate weapon, would the result be peaceful coexistence or a desperate war as the other kingdoms united to destroy this new threat? Gortwerg's dream is noble, but making it reality through the Numidium might create more problems than it solves. The Undurking presents the most unusual case of all. His agents approach you not with promises of peace or prosperity, but with a simple plea for mercy. The Undurking has suffered for centuries, trapped between life and death, his soul imprisoned in the Mantella, while his body endures in a state of perpetual decay. All he wants is an end to his torment, to be made whole again so that he can finally die. Give him the Mantella, his agents say, and he will destroy it, ending his curse and ensuring that the Numidium can never be activated. This is the only choice that does not put the ancient weapon in the hands of any kingdom. the only option that removes the temptation of its power from the political landscape entirely. The Underking's request is appealing in its simplicity. Destroying the Mantella would solve many problems, would prevent the Numidium from becoming a source of conflict and conquest. But you also understand what this means. The soul trapped in the Mantella has been there for centuries, suffering unimaginable torment. Does that soul deserve release, or does it deserve punishment for whatever role it played in its own fate? And what if the power the Mantella represents? Is destroying it truly the right choice? Or is it a waste of something that could be used for good? Lady Brysiana Magnuson, representing the blades, and through them Emperor Iliac Septim the Seventh himself, presents the imperial position. The Empire has maintained peace across Tamriel for centuries, she argues, providing stability and prosperity that the provinces could never achieve on their own. The Iliac Bay is technically part of the Empire, even if the local kingdoms maintain significant autonomy. If the imperial throne controls the Numidium, it can be kept secure, used only in the direst emergencies to protect all of Tamriel from existential threats. The Empire has the wisdom and experience to be trusted with such power, having already proven itself through centuries of responsible governance. Brysiana's arguments carry weight, and the Empire's record of stability is impressive. But you also know that the Empire is not infallible, that it has made mistakes and committed injustices in the name of unity. Iliac Septim is a good emperor, but he is old, and what will happen when he dies? Who will control the Numidium then? Can any institution, no matter how well-intentioned, be trusted with a weapon that can reshape reality itself? And what of the autonomy of the Iliac Bay kingdoms? Would imperial control of the Numidium effectively end their independence, turning them into provinces in fact rather than just in name? There is one more option, one that few acknowledge, but that weighs on your mind as you contemplate this terrible choice. You could keep the totem and mantella for yourself. You could activate the Numidium and use it according to your own judgment, imposing your will on the Iliac Bay and perhaps beyond. You have proven yourself capable and resourceful throughout this investigation. You have made decisions that affected the lives of thousands. Why should you not be the one to wield ultimate power? The temptation is real, more real than you want to admit. But you also recognize it for what it is, the corruption that absolute power brings. You are just one person, with all the flaws and limitations that implies. What makes you qualified to decide the fate of millions? What checks would exist on your power? How long before you became the very thing you oppose, a tyrant imposing your will through force? The fact that you even consider this option is itself troubling, a sign of how the proximity to such power affects judgment and perspective. As you wrestle with this decision, you come to understand something fundamental about the Numidium and what it represents. The brass god is not just a weapon. It is a test, a crucible that reveals the true nature of those who seek it. Every faction that wants the Numidium believes itself to be the right choice, the only option that will use the power responsibly. They all have justifications, all have visions of a better future that they will create, but the very act of seeking such power, of wanting to possess the ability to impose one's will on reality, is itself a corruption. The Numidium cannot be used for good because its very existence warps the moral landscape around it. You realize that there is no right choice among the options presented to you. Every path leads to consequences that will harm innocence, that will reshape the Iliac Bay in ways both intended and unintended. The kingdoms that receive the totem and mantella will use them, and when they do, people will die. Nations will fall. The map of Tamriel will be redrawn, and you will be the one who made it possible, who chose which faction would wield this terrible power. The weight of this decision is crushing. You did not ask for this responsibility. You came to the Iliac Bay to investigate a haunting and recover a letter. You were supposed to be a minor player in events, an agent carrying out the Emperor's instructions, but circumstance and your own choices have brought you to this moment where you hold the fate of nations in your hands. There is no one to share this burden with, no higher authority to whom you can pass the decision. The choice is yours alone, and you must make it knowing that you will live with the consequences for the rest of your life. In the end, you make your decision. You choose which faction will receive the Totem of Tiber Septim and the Mantella. Perhaps you give them to one of the major kingdoms, believing that their vision of the future is least harmful. Perhaps you give them to the Undurking, choosing to end the threat permanently rather than allow it to persist. Perhaps you give them to the Empire, trusting in imperial institutions to constrain the use of such power. Or perhaps you make some other choice, one that seems right in the moment, even if its long-term consequences are unclear. The activation of the Numidium begins with a ritual, ancient words and gestures that awaken the brass god from its centuries-long slumber. The faction you chose performs this ritual, assembling the pieces of the great construct that have been hidden across the Iliac Bay, installing the Mantella as its power source, using the totem to establish control. The process takes time, requires resources and expertise that only a major power can provide. But it succeeds, and the Numidium rises once more. The brass god towers over the landscape, massive and terrible, its brass skin gleaming in the sun. It moves with ponderous inevitability, each step shaking the earth, its presence warping reality in subtle ways that make observers feel fundamentally wrong. The Numidium is not alive in any conventional sense, but it is not merely a machine either. It is something in between, powered by a trapped soul and animated by principles that mortal minds can barely comprehend. When it acts, it does so with the authority of absolute certainty, denying the very possibility of resistance. The faction that controls the Numidium uses it as they promised they would, or perhaps as you feared they would. Armies are swept aside. Cities surrender without a fight. The political map of the Iliac Bay begins to change as kingdoms are absorbed or destroyed. The activation of the brass god is a pivotal moment in history, one that will be remembered and debated for generations. And you are the one who made it possible, whose choice determined which vision of the future would be imposed on the Iliac Bay. As you watch the Numidium march across the land, as you see the consequences of your decision unfold, you are haunted by questions that have no answers. Did you make the right choice? Could anyone have made a right choice given the options? What will history say about your role in these events? The burden of this knowledge, of this responsibility, is something you will carry forever. You have changed the world for better or worse, and there is no going back. Section 6. The warp in the West and its aftermath. The moment the Numidium activates, reality itself begins to fracture. You feel it immediately, a sensation like the world is splitting along invisible seams, like time is folding back on itself in ways that should not be possible. The brass god rises, towering over the landscape, its brass skin gleaming with an inner light that seems to deny the very concept of shadow. When it moves, when it takes its first ponderous steps across the Iliac Bay, the ground shakes and the sky darkens, but something else happens too. Something that you sense more than see. Something that will only become clear when the chaos subsides and historians try to piece together what actually occurred. The activation of the Numidium triggers what scholars call a dragon break, a rupture in the normal flow of time, where linear causality collapses and multiple contradictory timelines exist simultaneously. This is not the first dragon break in Tamrielic history. The Middle Dawn lasted over 1,000 years in the First Era, a period where time itself became nonlinear and events occurred in impossible sequences. The activation of the Numidium during Tiber Septim's conquest of the Somerset Isles also caused a dragon break, though that one lasted only hours rather than years. Now, in the Iliac Bay, at the end of the Third Era's 4th century, reality fractures once more. What happens next defies simple description because it happens in multiple ways at once. You give the totem and mantella to one faction, but somehow, impossibly, you also give them to other factions. The Numidium is activated by Daggerfall, but it is also activated by Werest, by Sentinel, by Orsinium, by the Empire, and by the Undurking. All of these outcomes occur simultaneously, overlapping and contradicting each other, each one as real as the others. Time becomes fluid, and the rules that normally govern cause and effect simply cease to apply. In one timeline, you give the artifacts to King Gothrid of Daggerfall. The Numidium rises under Daggerfall's control, and the kingdom uses it to conquer its neighbors, expanding its territory across the southern coast of High Rock and into parts of Hammerfell. Daggerfall becomes the dominant power in the Iliac Bay, absorbing smaller kingdoms, and establishing a new order built on the threat of overwhelming force. King Gothrid rules with Queen Obkai at his side, and their combined lineage of Breton and Redguard becomes the foundation of a new dynasty. In another timeline, you give the artifacts to Princess Elisana of Wayrest. She uses the Numidium to eliminate her father King Eadwire and anyone else who stands in her way, taking the throne for herself and employing the brass god to expand Wayrest's influence across the eastern Iliac Bay. Elisana proves to be as ruthless as the rumors suggested, crushing opposition without mercy and establishing an economic empire enforced by the ultimate military weapon. Under her rule, Wayrest grows wealthy beyond measure, controlling trade routes and extracting tribute from conquered territories. In yet another timeline, you give the artifacts to Prince Lawton of Sentinel. The Redguard Kingdom uses the Numidium to reclaim lands lost in previous wars and to establish Sentinel as the preeminent power along the southern coast. Lawton rules according to Redguard traditions of honor, but even honor can be a harsh master when backed by a god weapon. Sentinel's expansion brings Redguard culture and values to territories that previously followed different customs, and not everyone welcomes this change willingly. In still another timeline, you give the artifacts to Gortwerg of Orsinium. The Orc King uses the Numidium to force the other kingdoms to recognize Orsinium's sovereignty, to acknowledge that orcs are people deserving of respect and territory. Gortwerg's dream of a legitimate orc kingdom is realized, though it comes at the cost of further inflaming tensions between orcs and the other races. Orsinium stands strong, its borders secured by the threat of the brass god. But the prejudices that have existed for millennia do not disappear simply because orcs now possess overwhelming power. In another timeline, you give the artifacts to the Empire, to Emperor Uriel Septim VII through his agent Lady Brysiana. The imperial throne gains control of the Numidium, and while the Emperor does not use it for conquest within the Empire's borders, its mere existence changes the political calculations of every ruler in Tamriel. The Iliac Bay kingdoms maintain nominal independence, but everyone understands that the Empire could impose its will at any moment if it chose to do so. The balance of power shifts decisively toward the imperial city. And in one final timeline, you give the artifacts to the Undurking, to Zurin Arctus, the soul trapped in the Mantella for centuries. The Undurking uses the Numidium not for conquest, but for release, reuniting his soul with his body for the first time since his betrayal by Tiber Septim. For a brief, shining moment, Zurin Arctus is whole again, flesh and spirit joined as they should be. He destroys the Numidium, shattering it beyond any possibility of repair, ensuring that no one will ever again be able to use this terrible weapon. And then, finally granted the death he has sought for so long, Zurin Arctus passes from the world. His centuries of torment ended at last. all of these timelines happen. All of these outcomes are real. The dragon break means that contradictory events coexist, that multiple versions of history unfold simultaneously. Witnesses report seeing the Numidium marching in different directions at once, fighting for different masters, serving different purposes. Some see it destroying cities, while others see it bypassing population centers entirely. Some see it operating for days or weeks, while others insist it was active for only hours. The subjective experiences of those living through the dragon break very wildly, and none of them are wrong. Reality itself has become unstable, but dragon breaks cannot last forever. Eventually, the fractured timelines must resolve, must collapse back into a single, coherent history. When the warp in the West ends, when the dragon break concludes, and linear time reasserts itself, the Iliac Bay has been fundamentally transformed. Historians will later call this event the miracle of peace, a name that attempts to put a positive spin on what was actually a cataclysm that rewrote reality. The transformation is so complete and so sudden that those who lived through it often have conflicting memories of what came before, remembering multiple versions of events that all feel equally real. The most dramatic change is political. The 44 independent kingdoms that existed in the Iliac Bay before the warp in the West are reduced to just 4 major powers: Daggerfall, Wayrest, Sentinel, and Orsinium emerge as the surviving kingdoms, each one vastly expanded in territory and power compared to what they were before. The smaller kingdoms have simply ceased to exist, absorbed into these larger entities in ways that the survivors struggle to explain. People who remember being citizens of Anticlear or Dwinnen, or a dozen other kingdoms, now find themselves living in Daggerfall or Wayrest or Sentinel, and the borders have been redrawn to reflect this new reality. How did this happen? The most commonly accepted explanation is that somehow, in the chaos of the dragon break, all of the different timelines, where different factions controlled the Numidium, merged together. The conquests that each kingdom achieved in their respective timelines all happened simultaneously. And when reality stabilized, it did so in a configuration that reflected elements from all of these contradictory histories. Daggerfall expanded because it conquered territories using the Numidium. But so did Wayrest and Sentinel and Orsinium. Somehow, impossibly, all of these mutually exclusive conquests occurred and then reconciled themselves into a new status quo. The result is a lasting peace that no one fully understands or trusts. The 4 surviving kingdoms are now so powerful, so evenly matched, that none dares attack the others for fear of mutual destruction. The Iliac Bay, which has known almost constant warfare for centuries, suddenly finds itself in a state of stable equilibrium. Trade flourishes, borders remain fixed, diplomatic relations normalize. It is, in a sense, the peace that everyone claimed to want, achieved through means so strange and terrible that celebrating it feels wrong. King Gothrid rules an expanded Daggerfall, his kingdom now controlling vast stretches of the southern high rock coast and portions of northern Hammerfell. His marriage to Queen Obkai has taken on new significance, symbolizing not just peace between Daggerfall and Sentinel, but a bridge between Breton and Redguard cultures. The ghost of King Lysandus has been laid to rest, his murder avenged through your actions, and the city of Daggerfall no longer echoes with spectral wails at night. Lord Woodbourne faces justice for his betrayal, though the exact form of that justice varies depending on whose memories of the dragon break you believe. Princess Elisana rules Wearist after the death of her father King Eadwire. Circumstances of his passing unclear and subject to much speculation. Some remember him dying of natural causes. Others remember assassination. Still others remember him being killed in the chaos of the Numidium's activation. Elisana does not encourage discussion of this topic. Under her rule, Wearist becomes the wealthiest kingdom in the Iliac Bay, dominating trade and finance across the region. Elisana is feared and respected in equal measure. A ruler who has proven herself willing to do whatever necessary to advance her kingdom's interests. Prince Latan assumes full authority in Sentinel, leading the kingdom into a new era of prosperity and military strength. Sentinel controls significant territory along the coast of Hammerfell and has established itself as the voice of Redguard culture in the Iliac Bay region. The humiliation of the War of Bettany has been avenged through territorial gains that restore Sentinel's prestige. Relations with Daggerfall remain complex due to the marriage alliance between the two kingdoms, but the threat of renewed conflict has receded. Most remarkably, Gortwerg's vision for Orsinium has been realized. The Orc Kingdom stands as a recognized sovereign power, acknowledged by the other kingdoms and the Empire itself. Orsinium controls territory in the mountains between High Rock and Hammerfell, and Orc culture flourishes there without the constant threat of human armies seeking to destroy it. This is an unprecedented achievement, the culmination of Gortwerg's diplomatic and military efforts. For the first time in recorded history, Orcs are treated as equals by the other races, at least officially. Prejudice still exists. Attitudes change slowly. But the political legitimacy of Orsinium is no longer in question. The Empire maintains its nominal control over the Iliac Bay region, with all four kingdoms swearing loyalty to Emperor Uriel Septim VII. But the relationship has changed subtly. The local kingdoms are stronger now, more confident, more capable of independent action. The balance between imperial authority and local autonomy has shifted, and future emperors will have to navigate this new reality carefully. As for the Numidium itself, the brass god is destroyed, shattered beyond any possibility of reconstruction. The exact circumstances of its destruction vary depending on whose account you believe. Some say the Undurking destroyed it in his final act before achieving death. Others say it tore itself apart from the contradictory commands it received from multiple masters during the Dragon Break. Still, others claim that the Numidium simply could not withstand the strain of existing in multiple timelines simultaneously. Whatever the truth, the result is the same. The pieces of the Numidium are scattered across the Iliac Bay, and the knowledge of how to rebuild it has been lost. The mantella is gone, its power spent, the soul within it finally released. The Totem of Tiber Septim disappears, hidden or destroyed, its location unknown even to those who seek it most diligently. The warp in the West also affects individuals in profound ways. People who held positions of power in kingdoms that no longer exist must find new roles in the transformed political landscape. Nobles who ruled territories that have been absorbed into larger kingdoms must either adapt to their new circumstances or face irrelevance. Common people wake up to find themselves citizens of different kingdoms than they were the day before, with new lords and new laws and new expectations. The psychological impact of living through a dragon break, of having multiple sets of conflicting memories that all feel equally real, takes years for many to process. You emerge from the warp in the West changed as well. The exact details of what you did during the dragon break are unclear even to you. You remember giving the totem and mantella to one faction, but you also remember giving them to others. You remember events that contradict each other, actions you both took and did not take. This cognitive dissonance is disorienting, but you are not alone in experiencing it. Everyone who lived through the warp in the West carries similar contradictory memories, similar uncertainty about what actually happened. What is clear is that you played a crucial role in the events that reshaped the Iliac Bay. Your investigation uncovered the truth about King Lysandus's death. Your exploration of ancient ruins provided knowledge about the Numidium and the mantella. Your choices, whatever they were in whichever timeline, set in motion the events that led to the miracle of peace. History will remember you, though the exact nature of your contribution will be debated by scholars for centuries to come. Some will call you a hero who brought peace to a war-torn region. Others will call you a catalyst for chaos, whose actions led to the destabilization of reality itself. Both assessments contain elements of truth. The Emperor's letter, the object that started your entire mission, is recovered or destroyed or lost, depending on which version of events you remember. Queen Minasera may have received it, may have shared its contents with you, may have used the information it contained to further her own goals, or the letter may have been destroyed to protect its secrets, ensuring that whatever revelations it contained will never threaten the Empire's stability. The uncertainty extends even to this fundamental question, and Uriel Septim, the seventh, does not clarify the matter when you report back to him. In the years following the warp in the West, the Iliac Bay settles into its new configuration. The peace holds, though it is a strange peace, born from temporal paradox, and enforced by the memory of what the Numidium could do. The four great kingdoms compete economically and diplomatically, rather than militarily, each seeking advantage through trade agreements and political maneuvering, rather than through warfare. The region prospers in ways it never did when fragmented into dozens of squabbling city-states. But the cost of this peace is measured in the kingdoms that no longer exist, in the identities erased and the histories rewritten. The small kingdoms that were absorbed into larger entities are remembered, but their independent existence has ended. The cultures and traditions they cultivated over centuries must now survive as subcultures within larger, more diverse kingdoms. Some adapt and thrive in this new environment. Others fade away, unable to maintain their distinctiveness without political independence to support it. Your own legacy is complex and will remain so. You came to the Iliac Bay as an agent of the Emperor, tasked with laying a ghost to rest and recovering a letter. You accomplished those objectives, but you also became entangled in events far beyond the scope of your original mission. You played a role in activating the Numidium, in triggering the dragon break that reshaped reality itself. Whether this makes you a hero or a villain depends on perspective, on which outcome of the warp in the West one values most, on whether the peace that resulted justifies the chaos that created it. The complete story of Daggerfall, the story you have lived through, is one of ancient powers awakening, of political intrigue escalating beyond anyone's control, of choices made under impossible circumstances that reshape the map of Tamriel. It is a story about the weight of history, about how the past reaches forward to constrain and define the present. It is a story about power and its corrupting influence, about how even those with good intentions can become complicit in terrible events when ultimate weapons are at stake. And it is a story about you, an individual caught up in forces beyond mortal comprehension, who nevertheless made choices that mattered, that changed the world in ways both intended and unintended. The Iliac Bay will never be the same after the warp in the West. The four kingdoms that emerged from the dragon break will shape the region's future for generations to come. Orsinium's recognition marks a turning point in the relationship between orcs and the other races. The peace that settled over the region, strange and uncomfortable as it may be, represents an opportunity for prosperity that did not exist when warfare was constant. And you, standing at the center of these transformations, will carry the memory of what happened for the rest of your life, a burden and a badge of honor in equal measure. The mysteries you sought to solve have been resolved, though not always in ways that bring comfort. King Lysandus can rest now, his murder avenged, and his spirit freed from its haunting. The Numidium has been destroyed, its threat to reality ended. The kingdoms of the Iliac Bay have found a new equilibrium, however strange the path that led them there. and you have fulfilled your duty to the Emperor, though the mission evolved far beyond what either of you anticipated when you set out from the Imperial City all those months ago. This is the story of Daggerfall, of ancient powers and modern ambitions, of a region transformed by events that defy simple understanding. This is the story of the warp in the West, the miracle of peace, the dragon break that rewrote history. And this is your story, the choices you made and the consequences that flowed from them, echoing through time and shaping the future of Tamriel in ways both profound and impossible to fully comprehend. The tale is complete, but its implications will be felt for ages to come. Thank you for joining me on this deep dive into the lore of the Elder Scrolls II, Daggerfall. If you enjoyed exploring this complex and fascinating story, please consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel for more Elder Scrolls lore content. There are so many more stories to tell, so many more mysteries to uncover in the rich history of Tamriel. Until next time, may your road lead you to warm sands.